Hey guys, I'm Logan Freeman, and this is the LiveFree Investors Podcast. I interview investors and business owners who share investment advice so you too can live free. Today, I'm talking to Hans. Hans, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Logan, it's a pleasure to be here. I am kind of most notably an Olympic athlete turned luxury real estate agent here in the Bay Area. So that kind of sums me up a little bit, but I also do invest because I know you're an investor. I have some small multifamilies that I do in Washington State, so out of the Bay Area.
That's cool, man. You know, I was just flipping through Netflix the other day, and there's a reality TV show about some Hollywood real estate where I don't remember exactly what the TV show was, but you know, everybody was very good looking on that show, and you know, you fit that mold pretty well selling the luxury real estate.
I think the one you're thinking of is like Selling Sunset.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And I've seen it and I've avoided it. And honestly, just the crazy drama. The houses look awesome, but the crazy drama there. I hope to be the antithesis of that drama with my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I made it about 5 minutes, and my daughter started, you know, running around, so I didn't actually get to watch any of it. But that's really cool, man. So how did you kind of find your niche in the luxury real estate space?
Well, I didn't start there, obviously, as very few people do.
Yeah.
And I started actually with short sales and sort of the distressed world, which was a great way to cut my teeth because I had to learn how to negotiate with the banks and then deal with these really complicated, you know, notice defaults or just complicated emotions around being in default. It was pretty wild. So my first year I did 9 transactions, which may not sound like a lot for someone in the Midwest, but here in the Bay Area, like the average agent in their first 6 months does like a deal and then maybe gets to 3 in their first year. So
Absolutely.
I did quite well relatively. And then it wasn't for so then a year and a half went by of that. I was doing pretty well, getting some traction, got introduced to David and Andrew, who are the team leaders in the Gunderman group that I'm now on. Their son's a rower. I was a rower. That's the Olympic part. I competed in rowing. We connected. Long story short, a month or two later, I reached out. I was like, hey, I think I can, you know, bring a lot of value to your team. I've got, you know, some of these sales skills. I can hustle. I can do these things. And they were open to it. And we sat down for a couple of interviews. Long story short, they brought me on, and that was just over 2 years ago now. And that's how I really got into the luxury world, because they're selling high-end houses.
That's cool, man. You know, when I stopped playing football, I got really heavily involved in indoor rowing. So, you know, the Concept 2 and I had the US record for the 500 meter for a little while. And What was it? It was so I was at 115, and then and then I went for the world record, which was 113.7, and I actually hit 114.2. I was 0.5 of a second off, and I hung it up after that. I never got the world record, but I know rowing just a little bit.
Dude, that's intense. I can tell you that I never saw that low of splits, but I was also trying to go for 2K.
Right.
So and 4 times as long.
Smoke me on a 2K.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a different really cool beast for sure.
It's definitely a different beast. So what's the best thing about being an investor and business owner?
Man, the best thing is probably also the worst thing, which is the freedom.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about, you know, the LiveFree podcast. You guys are trying to create freedom for people, but you know, that is obviously the result of a lot of good decisions when you are also free to make other decisions. We joked about Netflix. Like, you've got all this free time, especially when you're a business owner, especially when you're just starting out, and you can choose to spend it in productive or potentially unproductive ways. And you know, if you're someone who's really disciplined and able to kind of dig in on your critical goals and make a plan and really just start to knock things out every day and repeat that over and over and stack that, you can really build a life of freedom with real estate investing or your own business or whatever. But it takes that discipline and that hard work daily when no one's watching and no one's forcing you and you're not making a paycheck to make that happen.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better, man. That's fantastic. So there's a lot of different things going on in the economy, in the social world, in the economic world. So keeping up with those current trends and opportunities can be a challenge. I'm curious how you stay up to date with everything.
Well, staying up to date, I think you have to be careful with what you read or what you watch in
Sure.
general. So that kind of goes back to like how you're spending your time, but where you're getting your information from, you turn on any news channel or watch anything on YouTube, you could get 25,000 different opinions, right?
Absolutely.
So definitely being careful there, but really what I have started to gravitate towards is business leaders and particularly podcasts, where they put content out that like they have a track record, they've been around, they're not just like someone who made a bunch of money in the last uptick, like a lot of the gurus and a lot of the sort of whatever buzzword you want to throw on people have, but they've been around through a couple of different cycles. They've really sort of tested their skills and refined their skills over time. So I really have been trying to focus in on reading those books, listening to those podcasts of the people who have done it for 20, 30 years, specifically, real estate. But, I'm reading Howard Schultz's book, one of his books right now. And that guy's seen some stuff and been around. Right. So
I read the Starbucks Experience way back when.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by the way he treats his people, because Starbucks, it turns out, was the first privately owned company to offer full healthcare benefits to anybody who worked at least 20 hours a week.
That's right.
And offer stock options to everybody who worked there. And they called it the bean stock or bean something, right?
That's cool.
But yeah, just fascinated by those decisions in, up markets, down markets, economic boom and bust, just trying to learn from the best in that way.
Give us a recommendation of your top podcast that you're listening to right now.
I've got two. One is called Think Like a CEO. It's by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Awesome podcast, really digestible, really actionable. They break them up into like 4 episodes. Each episode's about 20 minutes per season, quote unquote. I think they've got 4 or 5 seasons out now. The other one that just launched, it's 4 women who are all in the Keller Williams organization, and and it's called Empire Building. And these are 4 women who run their own teams, have businesses outside of real estate or congruent with real estate, but all have sort of a different expertise. One is a woman in the DC area whose team does over $10 million of gross commissions a year. So she's got a pretty productive team, and she talks about some of her team leading struggles and what she's learned. We got another woman on there who is, if you know Ben Kinney, he's one of up in the Northwest. He owns a bunch of Keller Williams franchises and has one of the most productive teams nationally for Keller Williams. She's his number one. And so she's so you just get like a ton of interesting different perspectives through business. And there's 4 of them who just are absolutely amazing. And I love listening to them, aside from the fact that they're women, and that's just a different voice and a different opinion in the business space.
Absolutely is. My broker is a woman, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And they're great business people on top of that. So it's just such a cool voice to have in my head constantly.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. What's the best advice that you've received as an investor?
As an investor, best advice would be that I need, you don't have to do the deal all at once. And that when I did my very first short-term or my very first small rental, we were buying a duplex at the same time I was doing a flip. And I was thinking, spreadsheeting out like all the costs of renovation. We're going to have to paint, new floors, all that stuff. I was thinking about doing it like all immediately within 6 months or less, right? Because I was in the flip mentality.
Yep.
But then the agent at the time said, hey, you don't have to do this all at once. You could do this over 3 years if you wanted. Like even at the low rents that you have, you're still going to cover your costs. It'll just kind of sit there. It won't make any money, but you can just wait and do this in like 3 or 4 phases if you wanted to. And that changed my perspective on like how to turn units over and how to like look at putting money away and saving and then putting money back into the property over time, as opposed to all immediately at once.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for that. This is a social show, Hans, and I love that we were connected through, one of the social mediums. So, this is your opportunity to promote somebody on the show. So what other successful investor, business owner, person like yourself should be on the Live Free Investors podcast?
Man, there's many that are running through my head.
Hey, you can say many. It's all right. I'll write them down.
Yeah, I've got a couple. So I've got some co-founders who are working with me right now on a podcast related project, and Carl Sona's the one that comes to mind.
I'll get Carl on.
Yeah, I think he would be an awesome addition to your show. He does invest passively in real estate, but that's not his main gig. But he's got a breadth of experience that I think is awesome.
Awesome. I'll get Carl on. This is the most important question of the podcast, and one that I probably did not prep you for. But my brand, like you mentioned earlier, is creating freedom for myself, for my family, and for other people. So what's the best way that on a regular basis to live free?
Well, I think in the context of like financial freedom, it's knowing your numbers and having a really good handle on your expenses, on your income, and really knowing your personal P&L. Even if it's just a really basic Excel spreadsheet, just keeping track of what you spend and what you make, so you know what direction you're going.
Sure.
As far as sort of like a broader context, I'd say this is something I'm shifting my podcast into, away from my original topic, and we're still going to talk about sort of financial freedom and business growing and that sort of thing, but I'm moving into mindset and really trying to help people win at the mindset, because that's something I did pretty well when I was rowing and competing, and really being open to new opportunities, be open to hearing other perspectives, and then just having an internal dialogue that is truly engaging, says yes a lot, yes and, as opposed to no but, right?
Yes.
And then really carrying that mindset into every engagement that you have, because I think being open in that way will create freedom for you financially and otherwise.
I love it. Mentality, mindset, so important. One thing that I harp on quite a bit. Thank you so much for sharing that. Guys, this is Logan Freeman with the Live Free Investor Podcast, where investors and business owners share advice so you too can live free. For more insights and ideas on how you can live free, connect and message with myself and with Hans on LinkedIn today. Hans, thanks for joining us today.
Logan, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Until next time, live free.